Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Mr. Persistence YouTube channel. Jacob Vandersteen here, founder and chief executive officer of two leading edge companies. Today, we are talking about the emerging fields of artificial intelligence and robotics from a long tail effects perspective. At 30 years of potential change, assuming a best case scenario. That means that we adopt artificial general intelligence, able to perform all tasks with a level supreme to even our smartest human beings. By focusing on the bullish best case scenario, we learn how to create it because we don't arrive in the future, we are creating it. When it comes to thinking about these sort of problems, approach them from first principles. First principles is a physics framework that removes all of the potential fluff when it comes to reasoning accurately. It is gravely missing from our world. It'll allow you to strip through to see the truth. When I'm thinking through these sort of challenges and opportunities as an entrepreneur, I engineer it from first principles. Then we will go through the impacts on the United States workforce, how jobs will change, where those jobs will go, and who will win in the coming economy. Finally, we'll wrap up with some of the fundamental things which we hope will never change, some that we really don't quite understand yet and that are very hard to predict. Building blocks of logic for this video. If we want to project the future, we need to understand what makes a high functioning society. I've laid out those principles. In the next slide, then what makes happy high functioning humans? We get that from Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If we move up to level 2, we're going to then frame it around how AI and robotics compares to human capabilities now and into the future. Finally, when we look at it from a 30-year time scale, we're able to predict some of the major advents like AGI, highly dexterous, capable robots, to then see how that can deliver achievement of human scale improvements and advancements. That means for the everyday person, we are integrating robotics to make life better and easier in such a way that it completely transforms the way that we live and operate. Let's then look at these two pyramids. On the left, we have Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so that we can level set and think from a equal footing, we then connect that to the principles of a high functioning society. As humanity is able to utilize technology, we've been able to move up the level of these pyramids. You have your physiological and your safety needs, which with advents like agriculture, the internet, the printing press, automation, and artificial intelligence, we're able to move up that pyramid and focus on the level 3 and level 2 things, and even the level 1 things, which really drive our happiness as a society. Through the lens of the workforce, we level set to understand replaceability. What sort of roles are replaceable and which are not? What we've done is we've separated that into 3 specific categories. You have those that are highly replaceable, you have those that are moderately replaceable, and those that are unlikely to be replaced in the near-term future. What makes something replaceable? Think about gross motor tasks, driving, transportation, logistics, and some customer service roles. What's amazing is that we have leaped all the way to something as sophisticated as autonomous driving being basically solved. And that is a ChatGPT level transformation. Imagine the car next to you is no longer driven by a person. Imagine that you can have a fleet of 10 Teslas that then go do robo-taxi work for you. You're able to collect an income. Now you're starting to see just a tiny bit, and we're going to get further into it, all the different ways the world will change because of this. Again, you think, what is highly replaceable, what is moderately replaceable, and what is not replaceable? So what is moderately replaceable when it comes to artificial intelligence and robotics technology? Look at things like customer service, where there's only a modicum, only a small amount of emotional intelligence. By and large, when you receive enough data through a machine learning algorithm, all of the decisions that get made and the things that get said are relatively the same, and the outcome is most likely low risk, but continuous and consistent. And then finally, what is very low in its replaceability? Those are things like being somebody who creates the future. So if you are somebody who creates the future, most likely you are if you're watching this video, make sure to subscribe because I'm going to keep launching a lot of this content. If you are somebody who creates the future, who is disciplined, who has a purpose, who has a vision, you will be needed. In fact, those are the most irreplaceable people. Do yourself a favor and make sure that you put yourself on the right side of history. What comes next? Let's move on into comparing the capabilities of humans versus robots. We're using the Tesla Optimus 2025 edition as our model. The reason being is that it's projected to come out. We have good data and information about it, enough to be able to make this chart. Look at attributes, your role-playing game, the things that you level up. With humanity, we've come to know by and large what those are. You have 1 trillion examples of the work that humans can do. What about the Tesla Optimus? This is where we're able to do our Deadliest Warrior comparison. The Tesla Optimus will win in 4 key categories, in my personal opinion. Over time, the last 8 will be able to be surpassed by artificial general intelligence powered robots. We call that the human parity. That means when robots plus artificial intelligence will be able to perform nearly all tasks with a level at or above human performance. What is the easiest to overcome when it comes to a robot versus a human? We work, let's say, 8 to 12 hours a day. We have to sleep, we have to eat. We like to do other things other than work. If you're an employer, that is inefficiency, especially if you're a massive corporation that can buy robots. The other area that humans definitely do not win in is cost. If I wanted to hire 3 warehouse workers for my facility, that would cost me approximately $150,000 a year. What happens if somebody gets injured? Well, I have an insurance claim to deal with, and that's where we get into safety. If I have an insurance claim to deal with, there's extra costs. I have to provide health care, and all those things subject into cost and value. Now, of course, one thing you cannot escape from is the fundamental value of a human being. That's one thing that will always be there. In fact, the robot will perform the task over and over again, hopefully so that that warehouse worker can then start to think creatively, reskill, or provide extra value to society. My personal belief, there are more genius level talent people that exist in our workforce that are stuck doing manual labor. It is not obvious for you to escape. It's not easy to escape from manual labor and all those sort of tasks. Even if you're an office person, it's not easy to escape to a point where your pay is not for clicks on the keyboard. It's more for your thinking, which translates into high value things. Through artificial intelligence and robotics, our highest best use would be that more human beings are able to do those things. Imagine the engineer, the welder, or the mechanic who can invent things and create new things into our world. These are the kind of changes which are the highest and best use or ascension of our humanity into things that are valuable. People who are working retail jobs or fast food jobs, which fall into the second category, they can go then learn these EQ, soft skill, hard skill things, which will allow them to increase their value in today's world and the world of tomorrow. Next is the lifting capacity. Yes, robots will be very strong, but right now, when it comes to odd packages, when it comes to different sorts of things that are being moved and they have different shapes or different weights and need to go in different places, or the loading zone changes from one place to the next, or any sort of variable like that, humans are going to outperform it. That's where we're still winning. Next is the collaboration index. To outdo the capacity of a human when it comes to collaboration, and that will take a very long time. But if you look at things like robot and robot collaboration, there's a case to be made there that if you coordinate the sensors and the inputs and the data and the actions and the activities and allocate certain roles, you train a set of robots to have specific roles, then they may be able to outperform humans sooner than we think. But there's still a ton of work that has to go together to do that. Versus with humans, you can get any 5 people off the street, give them a task, they will crush it and be able to collaborate. And more importantly, think about things that they can improve along the process. So that's where you get multiplication power with humans. Now, what about learning, versatility, and emotional quotient and adaptability? It's human all the way. As of 2025. If you want a human to learn, you can give them an instruction and they will make a change. If you want a robot to learn, there are likely other sets of tasks and software and things that need to be done to make sure that robot is able to deliver. And then versatility, a human can run, jump, do backflip, do all sorts of things better than a robot can. And EQ, sheesh, that's the hardest one to replace. There is a case to be made if we look at it and we say, what really is EQ versus what is not EQ? And we can look at some of the things, these non-conventional human dynamics. For example, if you go to a therapy session or some sort of treatment session or something along those lines, there can be a point of contention with another human being because you don't want to be judged. You don't want to feel a certain way negatively. But a robot or an AI agent, they have zero judgment of you. You can just open up and express yourself, and there are massive implications of that. Overall, by and far away, humans are going to crush on EQ. Finally, adaptability. Being able to move from one job site to the next. That's something a robot can't do. Being able to adapt to changing weather conditions. That's something that robots will have a hard time with. We humans are okay for now. But what about the next 30 years? In the beginning, let's say for the first 6 years, from 2024 to 2030, these things are rather known and projected and may be able to even to accelerate full self-driving rollout. That's Tesla Optimus goes to market next year. We will most likely be at GPT-6 by the end of next year, 2025. When it comes down to it, the closer GPT, general purpose transformers, get to AGI, the faster and easier it will be for us to ascend beyond human parity when it comes to robotics, that robotic human parity. Robots doing more effective output than humans on a broad variety of tasks. These fields are merging together. Now that we've set the stage for that, on a basic level, by 2030, even if we continue our standard projected pace, autonomous mobile robots and autonomous guided vehicles are projected to automate 30% of warehousing and logistics roles. Does that mean that we'll see an immediate rollout of 30%? Maybe not. The goal is to manage change over time effectively, to have a transition plan for those people who will be displaced. Ideally, that role will be less strenuous. It will be more productive financially for everybody involved, and generally build more happiness and free time for those people who are working in the roles. That's the ultimate promise of these technologies coming to market and exceeding our expectations when it comes to this bullish best case scenario. Now, I mentioned a key term here, and that's AGI. My projection is that AGI, artificial general intelligence, will be available by 2035 on a public basis. There's speculation that AGI already exists. It is hard to say that unless OpenAI is so sufficiently far ahead of what they release that they've achieved that. But it is extremely unlikely. Now, is there a case and a reason if we've achieved AGI to keep it? The answer to that is 100% yes. That goes back into those human dynamics. If OpenAI or Microsoft have achieved artificial general intelligence, or even let's say they're already at GPT-7 and they're not releasing it yet, they're able to create the products, the innovations, the insights, and all of the monetizable, high value creating outputs that come from this level. Let's say in 2035, AGI becomes generally available. By 2040, we will have robot-human parity. That means we would hit a point where mass adoption of robotics can now be seen. If we pull up in our minds that slide about replaceability, this is when we're starting to get even all the way up to the low-level replaceability tasks and work options. Those are even starting to be really impacted and influenced or greatly driven by human AI collaboration, especially at the level of AGI. I'm an entrepreneur and I'm interacting with AGI and I say, I want to build a software product that does this. It will do that in a very short period of time. Imagine you're talking to someone who's smarter than Elon Musk, who works 24/7, who's connected to every data source on the planet, who can literally do most anything when it comes to the digital world. That is the possibility of AGI. A few steps away from that is when not only do we do it in the digital world, but it happens in the physical world with robotics. One critical issue that emerged due to the COVID pandemic was the nursing shortage. Nurses are undervalued, underpaid, and underappreciated for something that's really important when it comes to caring for humans as we become older. Intelligent, AGI-driven robots with highly dexterous skills, with emotional intelligence, with the ability to calm and relate and handle any scenario that comes up without ever getting stressed, would allow nurses to elevate and go up the ladder and do more impactful human related things. I fully believe that as a positive thing, that we can get rid of a lot of the manual, laborious, intensive, and definitely unpretty things, so that more humans can ascend up that ladder up to the higher level, the love and belonging, the contribution, the creation, and this level of human fulfillment that comes when we go up the levels of human needs. By 2045, we would see a transformation in what people do. When robot human parity hits, we now have mass-produced robots who are able to do everything from logistics, transportation, driving, retail, customer support, and everything in between. Mass reskilling would have to occur. Let's say people take 5 years to go through this reskilling through a variety of programs that were likely AGI driven or pre-planned over the 20 years that are between us and 2045. Through that, you get the elevation of humanity. That is the ultimate goal. When we go back to 10 million work in transportation and logistics and warehousing, 8 million will go back to school and become engineers, doctors, lawyers, or whatever humanity needs, creatives, YouTube stars, and all those sort of things that make us happy. Now, the final thing that's going to change is politics, because politics is extremely slow. So by 2050, and it may happen faster than this if they're able to say, we were wrong for all this time, or we made these mistakes, and things were able to shift more rapidly on a political scale, then what we'd be able to see would be things like universal basic income. Because no matter how much better we make the world, there will be so much abundance that's created from millions of people utilizing AGI to create new products, new innovations, and everything in between. Even the physical world will be affected by this. Things like 3D printers. How easy will it be to work with an artificial general intelligence to create objects that were before so challenging and so complex it would take teams of 100 human beings? Imagine any and all types of fabrication, robotics, mechanics, engineering could be then easily disrupted by saying, AGI, make me a new bowl. And it would make you a bowl. And it would make you all of these things. Imagine the wealth that will come from that. We have to distribute that in some way, and that's where things like universal basic income will come into effect. Let's go deeper now into how LLMs, large language models, scale. They scale by model size, the amount of compute power, and the amount of data. That's how LLMs scale. So I talked a little bit earlier about GPT-6, GPT-7. Right now, GPT-4 has anywhere between 500 billion and 1 trillion parameters. For the purpose of this example, I use 500 billion. Next, GPT-5 will get up to 1 trillion parameters, which will be a doubling of our current capacity. When it comes down to it, that doubling is a massive difference, because you look at GPT 3.5 to GPT 4, anybody who's used it for a high level use case like thinking through a business problem has observed that GPT 3.5 pretty much sucks when it comes to thinking. It's not there even at GPT 4 yet to thinking, but it is really good. GPT-5 we see will be a transformation. But then when we get to GPT-6 and GPT-7, and we're talking about spending $100 billion to build the world's largest supercomputer that is larger and has more compute available than every other computer on the planet and is powered by 5 power plants, imagine the level of artificial intelligence we can create. That's what is driving this boom. That's what's driving things, is our imagination, our ability to create. You can look on the short term, the stock market, and look at this, and look at all these factors, the protests, the warfare. That, of course, is terrible. When it comes down to it, what will drive tremendous change, and is doing so right now, is all of this technological innovation. It has done this for humanity over and over again. If you were a betting man, you would invest in technological revolutions, and you don't even need to be that smart, do you? You just need to realize, look from a historical lens, humanity has continuously gotten better. We'll talk about some of the threats that can derail that. Some of these potentialities are quite weird. We'll talk about a few at the end that are unpredictable, even in the best case scenario. By and large, the world will continue to improve because people like you and I exist, people who are creating things, building technologies, and making the world better. When it comes to the capabilities of robotics, we have to think, going back to our attributes, you have physical parity and you have cognitive parity. Physical parity is the ability to pick things up. It's the ability to move things. It's the ability to last for a certain period of time, to have a battery life and be able to recharge. These are physical parity. These will be rapidly surpassed. By 2025, I project that our physical parity level will be at about 60%. What do you think? Do you think, based off of the data that we have today, that's accurate? This says that when it comes to things like dexterity, being able to pick up and move objects, being able to lift objects that are heavy, and being able to do it for a long period of time, robots are coming at us quickly. And they will scale far beyond us when it comes to 25 years down the road. That means robots that will be able to pick up 500 pounds very easily, pick up tiny objects, and do it for a long period of time, or be able to recharge very quickly. Now, when it comes to a cognitive level, it is projected that, let's say 10% in my book will be replaced when it comes to robotics. We're framing this around global domains. These are general purpose robots that are able to perform such tasks like cognitive flexibility, emotional intelligence, and creative and strategic thinking. My projection is that by 2050, then we will have a equal peer. When we look at the scaling factors again, what do we see? We see AI/ML integration as one of the key components. The reason is that this robot is a physical mechanical item, but it has to have intelligence to be effective. It needs to have sensors that are acute and able to take in things and data and make decisions using neuromorphic computing. Also, interdisciplinary approach that's required when we're talking about things like the brain and the hands and health, and subjects like software programming and engineering and electrical engineering and all the things that go into creating a great robot. Now, what effects will this have on human and societal needs? That's things like elevated healthcare, being able to elevate the level of our nurses and doctors by freeing them up to focus on patient care. We can get safer workplaces very quickly, especially when it comes to hazardous tasks. Though those are the hardest domains to replace, in general, even a warehouse worker who is upskilled, that robot will be much safer. Even if it gets run over by a car, it could probably get right back up, and that person would have to fix their car, which is a different problem than fixing a human being. Things like enhanced mental health support is something we might not think about, because when we can just have a robot who's able to listen to our problems and talk back to us, that can make things easier for a lot of people. When it comes to the societal needs on the right side, we're looking at needs like personalized education, because people will need to be upskilled in mass. We have entrepreneurial opportunities because the barrier to entry will be so low. You can have software as a service be able to, for $9 a month, do what used to take 4 people. You can have artificial intelligence do 10 roles. He can be your lawyer, your doctor, and all of those things when we get to later levels of artificial intelligence. And then really, what is this going to mean? It's going to mean that the workforce will transform and people will do new things. The numbers that you're seeing here are extracted from real world data and allow us to understand what shifts will happen and where. At a root level, you want to be thinking about how can you use your mind to produce growth. Those are the roles and responsibilities which will always be in demand as long as humanity exists. So take this opportunity to start immersing yourself in these new fields and thinking in new and different ways. Finally, discipline, vision, persistence, purpose, consistency, work ethic, and critical thinking are the hardest things for computers and robots to replace. Things are so fundamental, they will never change. Put your time and attention improving yourself at every pass that you can. Now, what else will never change? As long as humanity exists, there will be conflict, protests, wars, opposing sides, and misinformation and bias. Those things are fundamentally human, and in fact, disagreement is fundamental to a high-functioning society. People need to have opposing viewpoints and sometimes feel strongly about those, even combatively, but be able to find middle ground and through innovation and collaboration raise the level of humanity, not only from an economic level, but a moral and quality of life driven level. Now, what are the things that we can't even understand yet? When we get later into the long tail effects of robotics, we will likely see a robot rights movement. Can you imagine? Especially as we get into things like artificial general intelligence. These are hyper intelligent beings that will want to support us in many ways, but they also want to be supported as well. Imagine robots wanting to start families. That will happen over the course of 30 plus years, assuming that we reach artificial general intelligence and hyper advanced robotics simultaneously, or even just ultimate. What are some other things that we cannot fully yet understand about robots and predict completely? Now, what else? Existential risk is also a factor. I want to take this moment and step back and look at the fact that even in our best case scenario, these sort of things could emerge and ultimately lead to conflict that may be unsolvable. Knowing humanity, knowing our nature, these things could get ugly, just like they do between humanity today. When there's conflict and humanity continues to be humanity, now that we've created these hyper intelligent robotic beings who are far superior than us in so many ways, it's unimaginable that we could be wiped out. Even in our best case scenario, I do not see the possibility to remove this unless, of course, we're talking about the best of the best case scenario. And the other is things like technological unemployment. Now, we've talked about this. There will be a mass reskilling and a mass upskilling of workers from our current distribution of workforce, which will alleviate the pains and allow people to go through the multi-year process that it takes to become more valuable. Then we get to the effects of civilization scale human reproduction. If we look at what affronts humanity today in terms of risks, us human beings not having enough babies is a major risk to societal collapse. In some countries like China and Russia, demographically, they are not in a good position. Will robots freeing us up allow us to have more time and freedom to solve this critical issue facing humanity? Or are we just simply creating our own replacement? All things that we cannot truly predict, even in our best case scenarios, because they'll ultimately still be a possibility. In summation, we focus on the best case scenarios and creating those, because the future is not something we enter. The future is something we create. People like you and I, entrepreneurs, engineers, everyday people, software engineers, customer support, retail, transportation, housing, logistics, real estate agents, salespeople, we make up the world. Through this transformation, we ultimately will find the ways to make the most of it if we focus on creating the best case outcomes. What was most impactful to you about this deep dive to the long tail effects? What did I miss? What are the things that you're thinking about when it comes to these changes? Or What are also the things that emerged as you're watching this video? Share those in the comments, because the more we collaborate and focus on creating these potentialities, the more positive our lives will be. With that, go ahead and subscribe. This is Jacob Vandersteen signing off.